Avoided telling my best friend I loved him for decades. He moved away and died. Now my silent regret haunts me alone. I was born into a normal family. I wasn't abused. I wasn't dirt poor. I didn't grow up devoid of opportunities. Physically I am a perfectly average man, around 6 feet tall, normal physique. I have all my hair still, got all my teeth and everything. You could walk past me on the street and you wouldn't have a clue that I'm a lonely man. You wouldn't know I'm miserable. You wouldn't know I'm deathly shy, because if you talked to me, I could make some small talk, but if you never approached me, I'd never dare to speak up. For all my life I have been so terribly scared of making mistakes, that I tried desperately to avoid making any, ever. I didn't want to make any form of social faux pas. I didn't want to do anything I would be ashamed of remembering. The only times I could ever let go was when I was intoxicated. That's when I would feel human. It's when I got the courage to actually make jokes, be funny, be friendly, be an actual person for a moment until I sobered up. I've only approached very few women in my life with romantic intentions, and when I did, I would fail inevitably. I did not even manage to befriend any, not really anyway. I had a female friend, once, who I drifted away from. She was married and her husband was also my friend, also briefly. He was a seaman and a great guy. We had some drinks together when both of us were in our 20s. It now seems like a lifetime away, but I remember how I envied his life. He had a wife who was an intelligent and charming young woman. He himself was a handsome, tall, robust fellow. They had a lovely young daughter who was mildly disabled intellectually due to a lack of air at birth, but who was so sweet and wonderful and ended up largely growing over her issues. Eventually this couple, my only 2 friends, moved far away. After 5 years of working for a foreign shipping company as an officer, my friend was able to relocate to another country where he moved his wife and daughter. We tried to meet several more times, but it never materialized. Just 2 days ago I received the news that my only friend has died. It's been almost 25 years since we last had a beer together in his backyard. I love that man and I miss him. That's my entire social life of 64 years right there. Besides my brother and his family, there is no one I interact with anymore. Coworkers and I were always cordial at best, distant, professional but reserved. That's my entire life. Reserved. Controlled. Never let my emotions show. 3 decades ago my friend and I, we drank and talked of the good things in life. But we never let go of our emotions. I never shed a tear. I never gave him a manly hug. I wish I did. I wish I had shed a tear. I wish I had let go of my emotions, but I never did. As I am writing this I am realizing that I really loved my friend. He was a great man and a wonderful man and he was sweet. He was the only one, in my life, who was truly sweet. His wife didn't treat him right. I remember my friend would come to my apartment and bring food he had made. He would prepare fish, meat, delicious dishes. The barbecue gatherings we had in his backyard were always wonderful. I wish on that one last night we shared in the house of his in-laws, when the other guests had left and it was just the 2 of us sitting there. I wish I had told him, right there and then, as he told me in tears of his father's mistreatment of him and the rejection he felt, that I loved him. Because I realize now that I did. I married at the age of 50. I was a virgin when I married. And perhaps underuse of equipment causes malfunction, because I was unable to have a child with her, which is why she decided to leave me. I understand it. I was broken, truly, and she saw it. I've been alone for too long to be with anyone, really. And besides, to be completely honest, I did not love her and I am pretty sure she did not love me either. She loved the idea of me. Of what I could, in theory, have offered her. A house. Family. Stability and a future. But the family part was important, too important for her to give up on. She would have resented me had she stayed with me, so she didn't. I never loved my wife. She left me within 2 years, and I have never been with another soul since. Never tried, either. The will to try has left me long ago. The only one I think I ever truly loved was my friend. But he was a married man and he moved away to Europe. Now I just want to die in peace. But my health is decent and I am not suicidal, so I will have to wait a little while longer. When I do, I hope I will see my friend again. I find the idea of an afterlife soothing, although I am not fully sold on it. I would love it to be true, so I could actually tell him what I have always felt and never could bring myself to say. The fact that I never did will always haunt me forever. But if I had told him and he felt it too, what good would it have been for me to end a marriage? His daughter deserved better. She is married now and has a family. She never knew. And she never will. But now you do. Don't do what I did. Don't be so scared to be yourself. Don't be so terrified to take risks. Don't wait endlessly for life to put something good on your path, because life won't do any such thing. Please do not grow old and let the years pass by uneventfully. Don't wait for golden years to arrive without effort, without risk, without ups and downs and struggles. I tried so hard to avoid struggles out of that crippling fear and anxiety I always felt, and it got me nowhere. Update 1. I responded to some of the messages and comments, but frankly I was too shocked by the sheer number of responses. I was struck also by how universal that kindness and understanding I was showered with was. I'm humbled. I've pretty much packed my bags and left, shortly after I posted my message. By the end of the next day I was on a plane to the Netherlands where the funeral of my best friend Gordon has been held. It's already done by now. And for the first days I was not able to write yet. It was a lot to take in. The funeral was sad. Just a lot of sad people. I really didn't know what to expect. I haven't been to any funerals before for over 30 years. The last ones were when my grandparents died decades ago. They were in their 90s and their passing was hardly a shock. Gordon was only 63. And he was so healthy up until the moment he died, nobody had seen it coming. I never expected it. I always told myself it was okay not to see him because he'd still be there 20 years from now, anyway. A healthy man in his early retirement, living out his days in a Western European country with excellent healthcare, how could I have predicted he would die in his early 60s? One thing I learned: never take things for granted. Life has a way of taking unexpected turns and leaving you breathless, struggling to comprehend what just happened. In the Netherlands I met with Gordon's widow and his daughter. He never had more children because of complications during her birth, and his wife later suffered an ectopic pregnancy as well that left her barren. His daughter is now in her early 40s, she is a teacher. His daughter remembered me too, and that touched my soul because I never had a daughter of my own, and now I felt for a moment what it may have been like if I had. She has 2 teenage sons, the eldest of whom is his grandfather's spitting image. His widow was kinder than I remember her being. Time has taken a lot of the sharper edges off her. She told me Gordon would often speak to her about me. He had a lot of fond memories of me and she was surprised I had never come to visit even once. She didn't seem upset, she just found it curious. She hadn't expected me to come, but was pleased when I did. After the funeral, where I felt like an intruder and hardly spoke to anyone, I spent some time in Gordon's house. His family wanted me to stay for a while, which I did. I talked a lot to his widow there. She gave me a framed image of me and my friend, with his daughter on my lap, at a barbecue in his father-in-law's house. He kept that picture on his desk in his study, next to pictures of his wife, daughter and grandsons in various stages of their life. Throughout the years I had remained a part of his life, in a little way. I had been there on his desk every night he worked, read or wrote. When I left their house I hugged the widow. It's strange how I was the one to initiate the hug, that's a first for me. Hasn't happened before. I just wrapped my arms around her and held her tight. She wrapped hers around me as well. We cried. We didn't say anything anymore. I think she's a good friend. I think I will write her. Maybe visit again sometime. Now I'm just in the Netherlands. I'm in a place called Delft in a cute little bed and breakfast near a tram station. The host has a beautiful garden. Weather for the past days wasn't perfect, but even wandering around places I never been through a bit of rain or drizzle is still very soothing to me. I have cried a lot. I did not connect to many people, but just this morning I had a short, spontaneous phone call with Gordon's widow and that was enjoyable. I also had a few little chats with my host. The husband is a retired diplomat and he's an interesting fellow. All this may seem unimportant and not very major to most of you reading, and probably very boring to boot, but for me this is a big deal and I have done a lot of things lately that have brought me far out of my comfort zone. I am in a strange land, where I know next to no one, and yet, I don't feel as out of place somehow as I did before, at home. For now I am resting. Unwinding. Next week I'll tour the Netherlands a bit, the week after I will venture into Belgium for a short while, and after that, Germany. I have no real itinerary, I'm taking things slow. My money won't run out anytime soon and I think I have plenty of time. Worst case scenario, I die on some foreign trip somewhere in a beautiful but gloomy European town, and join Gordon. I'm not even sure if that's even a bad scenario at all. Best case scenario, I live 10 or 20 more years and when they put me in a home for the aged, I won't bore whoever looks after me because I can actually entertain them with a story or two. I think I'll try to have an adventure now. Wish me luck. I'm reflecting right now on the first 50 years of my life, which I spent as a virgin. I never touched anyone during those years, did not even hold hands, hug, or kiss anyone. I was static. Frozen. A robot, almost. It's not that I had no feelings, because I had a lot of them. It's just that I kept them on the surface for so long, pushed them down until they all but disappeared. Intimacy was scary. And it almost seemed like an impossibility. Something other, whole, humans did, but I was not allowed to partake in. A rite of passage I never passed. In a sense I was a perpetual child. Still terrified of my father as if I was a little boy, still fearful of my mother's looks, still caring about their judgment, well into middle age. I was ashamed, too. Of the things I wanted, desired, yet felt unworthy of for the longest time. I remember a day when I was already 27. I cycled past a little playground that had steel bars, and some shirtless young men were doing pull-ups and other exercises on them. They had broad, hard bodies, powerful frames, sun-kissed skin, and even though they were sweaty and likely tired from their activities, they still seemed so capable, as if they could drop down those bars and run a few blocks just for fun to see who's fastest. Me, I would just get out of breath if I exercised. I would get sweaty too, but my skin would turn red, I'd smell, I'd just look like a fish out of the water. Out of place. They made even tiresome exercises and great physical exertion look graceful, while for me, nothing ever was graceful. I had no grace. I was an animal. There are other things that I noticed. For example, the way I would not just look at the well-shaped behinds of girls, but also the wide shoulders of men. How I would be fascinated by a man's hands, especially if they were large and powerful. And nobody had hands like Gordon. They were half a hand longer than mine and easily twice as wide. His handshake was the kind that made you feel he was a man built for uprooting trees and raising hell, yet his voice was polite and he never even dared to squeeze as he was painfully aware of his prowess. Me, I had nothing but my out-of-shape, breathless, perpetually tired self. At the age of 29 I got into a fight with a drunken man outside of a bar. I would always avoid such things, normally, but this time I did not. I figured I had nothing to lose but I did, as I lost badly. I never felt so weak, so useless, because it seemed as if all my punches were laughably weak. The next day I took a long hard look at my bruised body in the mirror and decided to change. I did not want to be a weak, tired, out-of-shape doughy nobody for the rest of my life. I did not want to be anxious all my life to shake hands, even with women as half of them had a stronger grip than I myself had. My hands felt so weak, so soft, so feminine. Even the bruising on my skin from the fight, to me, were a sign of weakness. As if even my skin was weak. In my 30s I became more fit. I got in better shape, because I refused to be a weakling any longer. I picked up some rock climbing and, amazingly, my hands became much stronger because of it. I remember how the blisters on my skin would hurt, sometimes bleed and burst. Blisters turned into callus, and my palms got wider, my finger thicker with veins now running across the back of my hands. My wrists became wider too. I had to adjust my watch several times over the years. And the fresh air helped my weak lungs get stronger. The sunshine helped me get a healthy complexion. I looked almost human, and even though I personally knew something inside me was missing, something fundamental and important, other people didn't have a clue anymore. Even now that I looked and felt better, physically, I was still a chicken shit. I still did not approach anyone, not even to make friends, let alone to make a romantic connection. It just never occurred to me. I felt that, even with all the anxiety I still felt, maybe someone would come my way? I mean, I looked half decent by now. I made good enough money, and didn't have to spend much of it as my lifestyle was simple. Minimalist before it was a big deal to be one. I didn't still like myself, but I liked myself a little more than before, enough to imagine maybe someone in the world could like me too. But nobody did. Fast forward almost 20 years. It's in the early 2000s, internet is now very prominent. I like the chat rooms. The forums, the little obscure homemade websites where people write about their day-to-day lives. The ancestors of blogs as we know them, some now with the ability to comment. And I did. I talked to people. Lots and lots of people. I wrote to them, from behind my computer screen. Argued with them. Fought with them, even joked with them. Some were my age, back in the 1990s when I first went into this magical world of surfing. Some were older. Those who were older, they may be dead by now, I know for a fact some are. In 1998 I got into an argument in an obscure chat room for ham radio enthusiasts. I'm not even an enthusiast but I ended up there anyway, and I had an argument with some guy, tropical something, about an entirely different subject, Middle Eastern politics. Later another guy on there told me that the guy I just argued with was Marlon Brando. That was pretty cool. Almost 15 years ago to this day, I met a girl online. She was way younger than me, in retrospect she was too young. She was from the Philippines. She and I exchanged a lot of emails and I liked the chats we had, because she was funny, flirty, and when I sent her my picture, she actually called me handsome. That's something I have not heard often in my life and each time it happened before I just assumed it was a joke. Now, for the first time ever, I took her word for it. She seemed so genuine, so pure. And she was, but she was also someone who wanted things in life, certain very specific things, and who had a blueprint of how she wanted her future to look like. I was not able to give her what she wanted. Even though we tried. This is another story altogether. But I do want to tell you what it was like to lose my virginity after 50 years of thinking it simply wasn't in the cards for me. It was underwhelming. She was shy and reserved, but I was much shyer and more reserved than she ever could have been, forcing her to take the initiative. She was cute, I think, but I was surprised by how little I felt. I was also surprised by how hard I still got. It was like a force of nature, something stronger than me. She was amazed by it. She clearly had not expected. Well, that. And she said as much. This stroked my ego enough to not be too bruised after the actual act went down, awkward as the rest of my life had been. It was over in about 2 minutes. And I felt so empty and alone in that moment. I'm glad I did not remain a virgin for my entire life. I'm pretty convinced at this point I'll never have many experiences, maybe never again a single time. But I am glad I did not die a virgin, that much I can say. In a way I have always told myself that meeting a girl online was cheating. That somehow, if this was a game, it was me using a cheat code. But I'm not sure anymore, it seems so much more common nowadays. The empty feeling never really left me. I wasn't more fulfilled after than I was before. In retrospect, I would have signed up for some pen pal agency way sooner. Gone to the YMCA. Gotten drunk a few more times in opportune circumstances, perhaps. Who knows, what could have happened? I don't want to live in the past but I can't help to reflect and I hope it's worth reading to someone else. Update 2. Instead, I am in Italy right now, and not by myself, mind you. I am in a nice little restaurant as of writing this, and a very friendly, young Austrian man is with me as of me writing this. He's kind, funny, soft-spoken and frighteningly tall. His name is Jörg. If anyone had told me I'd be where I am right now, say, a month ago or even 2 weeks ago, I would not have believed it. And yet here I am. I've met Jörg 2 days ago. We got to chat in a cute little bar. He's into aviation and loves airplanes. He even has his flying license for small aircrafts. He's 6 feet 7 inches and gray-eyed, a bit of stubble, full head of hair. He's in his late 30s and slightly graying, and yet to me he's practically a kid. Still has a bit of that youthful energy, too. We've gradually gotten more and more drunk as the evening progressed, and as Jörg and myself got more drunk, we also got more scandalous. Turns out we share a pretty outrageous and awful sense of humor. I'm actually a funny man, never quite knew, and he says I have a dry sense of humor. When I made my post about my loneliness and regret of a life of doing, well, nothing. I never in my wildest dreams could have predicted myself making the sort of heartfelt human connections I'm making now. Called Gordon's widow up 4 more times since, had some long talks deep into the night. I have in my phone right now the numbers of 5 people I never had before: her, Jörg, the man and woman who own the bed and breakfast I stayed in the Netherlands, and also a tour guide in Italy. Thank you so much, sweet people. I'm so happy as I write this. I am not quite there yet, but for the first time in a long time I woke up this morning and I felt like I would hate it if I died today. And that may be a small step for humanity, but damn, for me it's a huge one. Update 3. I wasn't planning to write another update so soon, but the events of the past several days feel too surreal, too alive, not to share them. I made it to Florence after parting ways with Jörg, and while I wouldn't say we became best friends, we did exchange numbers, and he's already sent me an image of him with his arms outstretched, pretending to be a jet at the edge of Innsbruck's runway. "Fly, old man, fly," he wrote underneath, and I burst out laughing reading it in my hotel room. If there's an easier, purer joy in life than someone genuinely wanting to make you smile, I haven't found it yet. Florence is chaos and art and stone and chatter and the constant echo of church bells. The streets are narrow, and the sun twists in impossible ways around the old buildings. But even more than that, something happened I did not expect at all. I signed up for a silly walking tour, more to pass the time than anything else. Our guide, Sophia, had this fiery way of talking about Dante and the Medici, and I surprised myself by actually asking her questions. At one point, we stopped at a bridge over the Arno, and she mentioned how couples fasten locks to the rails and toss keys into the river, a futile gesture of permanence, she called it, smiling wistfully. A man next to me, a Scottish tourist, hair askew and face pink from the sun, turned and said, "What would you lock here, given the chance?" I mumbled, the fear of missing things, and then promptly wished I could fly away from embarrassment. But the group only laughed, including Sophia, and for the first time in a millennium, I didn't want to be invisible. Later, with her encouragement, I joined the group for drinks in a peach-walled bar near Santa Croce. I sat next to Sophia. We talked about everything: her wild grandmother, my awkward adolescence, the taste of cheap red wine. She paused for a long moment, looking at my hands. "You look like you hold on tightly to things," she said, "and sometimes." She trailed off, then laughed, an easy, ringing sound that didn't need a punchline. I realized I was leaning in, that my posture had unconsciously shifted toward her, like a plant twisting toward the sun. The strangest thing, I told her about Gordon. Not all of it, only the outline, but more than I usually admit. She touched my wrist, briefly, and said, "The people we loved remake us, even after." For a brief moment, the ache in my chest softened, like warm honey over a sharp edge. Before leaving, she gave me a slip of paper, crinkled and warm from her palm. It has her number, and 2 words, gelato. Tomorrow? I debated myself for hours, but of course I called. The next afternoon, we strolled along the river sharing a cup of pistachio and stracciatella, swatting away pigeons and talking about her plans to visit her mother in Sicily. At some point, she slipped her arm through mine, just casual, unthinking warmth on a golden day, normal for most people, extraordinary for me. The real surprise came the following morning. A message for me at the front desk: "Mr. S, there is a phone call from the Netherlands." My heart leapt. It was Gordon's daughter. In halting, careful English, she said she had found an old letter among her father's papers, written but never sent, addressed to me. Her voice trembled. "Would you let me read you the first part?" I wandered out onto my hotel balcony, shivering in the morning air, as this gentle, grown woman read me words her father had meant for me before he left for Europe nearly 3 decades before. "I hope I lived in such a way," his letter began, "as to make you laugh, even if we didn't always say the things men say in movies." He wrote about regret, forgiveness, and hoping I would one day find, even for a week or an hour, the joy of not holding everything inside. By the end, we were both crying. After, she told me about her life, her teaching, her sons, how she wished she'd known her father's best friend better. She asked if I'd ever come back to visit. I promised yes. And then, I told Sophia about the call. She squeezed my hand. Sometimes the universe gives us what we need when we've nearly forgotten we deserved anything at all. I don't want to seem like a different person than I was, or to pretend this trip has solved me, or erase the deep loneliness that carves so much inside my bones. But in Florence, something invisible is rearranging within me. Maybe it was seeing the way the bridges lit up at dusk, or talking honestly with strangers I'd only just met, or hearing Gordon's words after so many silent years. Maybe it's that I said yes to gelato, to a phone call, to a gentle touch, to laughter, to a memory that doesn't have to hurt so much now. I don't know what's next. Tomorrow, Sophia and I are taking the train to Rome, an impulsive plan hatched over grappa. Maybe nothing comes of it. Maybe I simply see the ancient city through the eyes of a woman who seems to carry half the sun in her pockets. Or maybe, just maybe, there's much more life ahead than I ever thought possible. For the first time in a very, very long time, I feel open to the possibility of more love, more surprises, more days I would hate to end. Update 4. I suppose, after all that's come before, nobody will be too surprised to hear my plans in Italy stretched further than just Rome. Stretched is the polite word, Sophia says detonated. Neither of us made much of a plan. After a ludicrously late arrival in Termini and a frantic mistake involving our hotel keys, long story, short version, yes, I tried to open 2 other doors before remembering our room was on the next floor, Sophia announced, in her way that sounds like a challenge and an invitation at once. Tomorrow I'll show you what Romans eat for breakfast. A day that began with pastry ended, though that word doesn't feel right, because it hasn't ended yet, with something startling. I laughed, in public, so hard I almost choked. Here's what happened. We visited the Testaccio market, Sophia giving a running commentary, that butcher is the best in Rome, don't go there, that one's a thief, you must have those carciofi. She talked us through olives and cheeses like a sommelier, then got us spectacularly lost in the winding alleys, chasing the phantom memory of a coffee shop she swore existed. Ultimately, we found it, or something close. There, at a small table propped against the wall, we sat cradling espressos. It was then that Sophia's ex, Andrea, appeared, all angular Roman gestures and beautiful, sullen eyes. There was a startled pause. I felt oddly calm, for once. Maybe travel, maybe sleep deprivation, or maybe, even, something like happiness. Sophia introduced me, she didn't specify my title, and Andrea, in his not quite competent English, told me I seem a very interesting gentleman for a foreigner. I don't know if he meant it, but I liked him instantly. Later, after Andrea retreated with an air of crushed dignity, Sophia and I walked aimlessly. She told me about him, an almost love. I nodded, thinking of all my own almosts, the lives never quite lived. On a whim, we walked up Aventine Hill. It started to rain, one of those sweet, early summer showers that soak you at the shoulders and hair, but never feel harsh. We dashed under a blossom-heavy olive tree, breathless, and Sophia laughed, tilted her head back, letting her face get kissed by the rain. And for the first time in so long I didn't want to apologize for being alive, for doing something spontaneous or messy. She grabbed my hand and squeezed so hard it hurt, deliberately, so I'd feel alive. I must have stood there, stunned, because she just said, "Hey, stop looking at your life from above. Come down here." It may sound like nothing, but that was when I realized, I wanted to be seen, not invisible, not just a background man passing through every scene unnoticed. That night, exhausted, I dreamt of Gordon, not as a memory, but almost as if I was hanging at his shoulder, drinking in a noisy kitchen, the windows thrown open, the room brimming with warmth. When I told Sophia about the dream, she said, "You keep him alive by loving the world he's no longer in." There was a tenderness in that which shook me. A few days passed. Rome became Naples, then, at Sophia's suggestion, Procida. The island is all improbable pastels and sunlight. There, on an unsolicited dare, you need to swim in the Tyrrhenian before you die, I let myself be dragged down to a moonlit cove. For the first time since boyhood, I undressed in front of another person, my pale legs, my less than athletic torso, and dove in. Cold. Glorious. I laughed aloud, childishly, as we splashed and shivered ashore. Later, over grilled sardines and more wine than was wise, Sophia asked me, "Did you have any idea 2 months ago that you'd be drunk on a volcanic island, talking about ghosts and eating fish with your hands?" I shook my head and felt the truth of it. Life had veered somewhere I never thought possible. The next morning, I called Gordon's daughter again, wishing her a good end of the school year. Her youngest piped in to say ciao. In a bright, musical voice. I realized, for perhaps the first time ever, that I wasn't just holding on to the past, I was becoming part of someone else's present. Before we left Procida, Sophia suggested we each write a postcard to our younger selves. I spent a half hour on the balcony, staring out at fishing boats and sunlight, and wrote, "You don't have to disappear. You don't have to be afraid. There is always, another chance, even if you think you'll never get one." I don't know if my younger self could have believed it. I certainly wouldn't have, even last year. I'm in Germany now. Sophia and I parted in Rome, her to Sicily, me to Munich, then a town called Regensburg, for reasons I can't quite explain. I saw Gordon's favorite cathedral there, the spires wreathed with jackdaws in the mist, and left a tiny flower on the bridge above the Danube, where once he'd talked of crossings and returns. I cried, quietly and without shame, and I felt, more keenly than ever, how much richer grief becomes when it's shared, even by memory or by a letter read out loud across the years. The strangest thing of all, I don't feel as if I'm running away from my life anymore. I feel as if, at 64, finally, I am running into it. Yes, I still sometimes think, who am I to deserve this late blossoming? Who will care about an old man's discoveries? But every day, someone, whether Gordon's grandson sending me a goofy photo, Jörg inviting me to fly with him for a proper beer in Vienna, or Sophia's voice on the phone, describing a lemon grove at sunset, reminds me that the story's not finished. Tomorrow I'm off to Vienna, then maybe Budapest, then. Who knows? I've even begun to jot down days and images in a little black book. If nothing else, when I am old, very old, not just old enough to know better, maybe a nurse or neighbor will ask about the tattered photograph, or the slanted Italian address scribbled on a slip of paper. Maybe I'll tell them. Or maybe, I'll just remember how it felt to have someone reach for my hand in the rain, or to laugh too loudly at a joke in a Roman trattoria, or to hear a voice on the end of a foreign phone line say, I hope you find what you're seeking, even if you don't yet know what it is. I don't know what I'll find, but for the first time in all my life, that uncertainty feels more like possibility than threat. If you're reading this, and feel as I did, so recently, take the little risk. Say yes to something. Even if it's only breakfast with a stranger, or a swim in cold water, or a postcard you write to your lost, young self.